For our WebEx attendees, you should be able to hear us. Just so you know, we don't actually see you, so you're welcome to put your camera on, but we're not seeing you in the boardroom. And I think we're ready to go. Yeah, we Revitalized.
Good afternoon, Melanie Rackley with the Office of Charter Schools. Our first applicant board today is an accelerated applicant Revitalized Charter School out of Wake County. In year one, this applicant board proposes and projects a K-2 student enrollment of 216 students, ending in year 5 with a K-6 enrollment with 504 students. At capacity, the school proposes to serve the K through 8 grades at 648 students, and they would achieve that in year 7 according to their projections. Revitalized Charter School does plan to participate in food service. They will participate in the National School Lunch Program along with the CEP programs, and they have outlined various nutrition plans that they also plan to adopt in their proposed charter. They will provide transportation to their student body. They will utilize the weighted lottery. They already have a facility identified. There was not an LEA impact statement provided by the local district. They are not a repeat applicant, and they are not using the assistance of an EMO or CMO. They did not receive any consultation for their charter school application, and their application was deemed complete at the time of submission. And so again, if we can move to their Wake County map, the school actually, their proposed site for year 1 would be in the 27616 zip code. They are actually anticipating using the current Casa Esperanza charter school space located in the northeast quadrant of Raleigh. And so what you see here by way of the map in red is their proposed site. The schools in green are the neighboring LEA schools with a mix of elementary and middle school district schools there. In blue, you'll have to the northeast in blue, you have the Endeavor Charter School, which is the only charter school within that 6-mile radius there that you see. There also is provided another map for Revitalized Charter School. Their future site, because they do intend to serve students from southeast Raleigh, they actually propose their future site in zip code 27610. So what you see here are the district schools in green surrounding 27610. And then in blue, you actually have the RISE Southeast Charter School, formerly PAVE Southeast Raleigh. So those are the charters and the LEA districts within that zip code there. And so I am going to turn the floor over to the Revitalized Charter School Board. You all will have 10 minutes to make your opening statements and introduce your board. So we will allow you to begin. Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, CSAB. We would just like to start by thanking all of those of you who are in this room, but also those of you who are online who have been a part of this process thus far. We'd like to begin with a scenario in Wake County that we call Two Tales in One County. I invite you to kind of visualize with us as we kind of shed some light on a different story that often goes unnoticed in Wake County. So it's springtime in North Carolina, and two mothers are excitedly coming together to discuss their children's school options in their zip code, as they both have rising kindergartners that fall. Now, mother one lives in the town of Cary, an area that has 18 Wake County public schools, 14 of which are scoring at a school rating of a C or higher. And the area, just to give you a little bit of background about the town of Cary, has a per capita of about $56,000 and a median household income of $104,000. Now, mother two lives just 13 miles away from East Raleigh, which is our proposed location. And this area has a per capita of about $21,000, half of what it is in Cary. And it's part of the larger Raleigh which has a 12.6% poverty rate, which is higher than the national poverty average. As we take a closer look into the schools between Mother 2 and Mother 2's areas, Mother 2 was hoping that the area in which her home is located, the schools that are surrounding it, although not performing at the same performance of Cary, where there are 8 schools, traditional public schools, and 7 of them are performing at a D or F rating for several years. She's hoping that there's a special education program that will be performing at a higher performance than the average school rating. And to her dismay, none of those schools are proficient in serving their students with disabilities. Revitalized Charter School hopes to serve the communities in Wake County with highest need and plans to set a trend of academic excellence.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Valencia Church-Williams, and I count it an honor and a privilege to stand before you and have the opportunity to talk about a project about which I'm very excited. I will be the founding chairwoman for Revitalized Charter School should we receive your recommendation and approval from the state board. And I'm excited about this opportunity because I still believe in public education. So often when we begin to talk about charter schools and people begin to talk against charter schools, it is with this idea that it is somehow in opposition to public education. And I don't believe that. I believe that we are public education reimagined. We still accept public funds and we still have to be good stewards of the public trust. My background as a former director of student support services in a very large urban charter network in Washington, D.C., gave me the opportunity to see what that reimagination looks like, how charters can partner with public schools to get things done, to share resource sources, whether those be fiscal or personnel resources. In Washington, D.C., where I was at, over 50% of kids attend charter schools. And yet, through our special education consortium, we all worked together to make sure that we were properly impacting and properly instituting IDEA, Section 504, Title II, etc. All those things were under my purview as a student support services director. So again, I still believe in public education. And what I do believe, again, as a director of student support services, is that we have a unique opportunity here with Revitalized to look at kids and their social, emotional learning and behavioral needs at core, as opposed to looking at it as a place to intervene. What I saw in my work and what I've seen in my work over the past 20 years is that so much of what we see in terms of adverse academic outcomes for little people is as a result of unmet social, emotional, and behavioral needs, both for those little people and for the families that they come from. Education, we understand education is a way to change the trajectory of families, of communities, of children, and of professionals. And that's what we seek to do. Not to oppose anything that Wake is doing, not to take away from public education, but to partner, to reimagine, and to have a different paradigm for serving Wake County and the community and the children and the families that are here by first beginning to look at those opportunities for social, emotional learning and behavioral learning that will ultimately impact academics. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Morgan Camus, and I'm delighted that I get to join, at least remotely, for this very important conversation. As a non-native English-speaking immigrant, I have very sharp memories of how poorly I was served by schools who didn't provide me with the support and high expectations I deserved. I have taken those challenging formative experiences and channeled them into ensuring that all kids, and especially those who are most marginalized and vulnerable, thrive in school. Revitalized Charter School is the school that I wish I had as a kindergartner. To that end, my service to Revitalize will capitalize on my 2 decades experience, mostly in traditional public schools as a teacher, school district leader, and chief academic officer, working with underserved communities and delivering high quality, personalized, innovative learning models rooted in holistic measures of student success.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Paul Bryant. I am pleased to be before you today. I apologize for not being able to be face-to-face. I am currently principal and director of a charter school here in Triad, Greensboro. I have over 25 years of experience in both public school and higher education. I was a vice president of a university for many years after starting out as a public school teacher, and then went into the higher education sector. I came back to utilize my principal's license and everything else to finish my career in public education, where it all started. I am very happy and pleased and honored to join the board here for Revitalized as a founding member. It has, as you can see, a cadre of experienced and dedicated professionals who have been in the public sector for some time, and they're doing what these charter schools are meant to do, which is bring all of that experience to bear, to be innovative and to take on some of our most vulnerable populations, to see if we can't grow them and educate them and get them to learn in higher numbers. And so I look forward to being able to be a part of making this happen and engaging you in whatever it takes in order to get your approval for this organization to move forward, and for the schools to have an opportunity to partake in what we intend to do.
Good morning. My name is Annie Deaver, and I am the Secretary of Revitalized Charter Schools Board. Pleasure to be before you today. As a licensed social worker in New York State, I believe in Revitalized Charter Schools' mission for providing services of a holistic approach to a part of the Raleigh community who's deemed unmarginalized. As a nonprofit and healthcare leader with over 20 years experience, I'm acutely aware of how access to quality early education can impact the trajectory of someone's life. I'm a product of that. I'm also the mother of a son who benefited from charter school education, so I believe in it and I have lived it. I believe access to quality education is a key ingredient to future success, especially for those children who are deemed at risk or underserved. Revitalized Charter School will offer quality education to mostly lower income and low access children in East and Southeast Raleigh. Revitalized Charter School will offer an educational approach which invites community, family, and administration, of which will include very active and engaged social workers like myself to help to motivate and shape the minds of our young people. We believe Revitalized's holistic approach will yield critical, innovative thinkers and will, as a result, build out more healthy and whole children, families, and communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Kimberly Harris. I am a researcher and evaluator specializing in workforce development, specifically in STEM career identity formation issues, and I have been doing that work for the past 10 years. I'm also a product of the North Carolina public school system, K through 20. My undergrad and my graduate work in the North Carolina public school system. And as a researcher and a product of educators who recognizes the role that formative engagement and prioritizing identity formation and the factors that inform it can play at very young ages, I was drawn to Revitalize its mission and prioritization as it aligns with the work that I've done for over a decade and working with organizations to help facilitate support structures that can help young people who endeavor to go into STEM and other careers as well. And I'm happy to be here today.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your time here this afternoon, and thank you for the introduction of all of the board members. Just sort of laying kind of the groundwork of what happens next. We have 25 minutes of discussion. We're questions of CSAB board members for the board of Revitalized. We'll do that for 25 minutes, and then we'll have you'll have an opportunity for a closing statement, and then we'll have our deliberations where we just talk amongst ourselves. And also just sort of clarification as well. So there's basically one of three outcomes that can come from this afternoon, since you are an accelerated candidate. We can either decide today to move you forward to the State Board of Ed for final approval. We could decide not to move you forward to the State Board of Ed with that recommendation, or we may have more questions that we may need to invite you back in October. And so those would be one of the three outcomes that you can expect this afternoon. So with that, why don't we go ahead and put the clock down for reset for 25 minutes. We've all had a chance to review your application, and rather than just peppering you with question after question after question, maybe I'll ask CSAB board members from your review, are there specific questions that maybe let's put some of those initial questions out on the table, and then we can kind of go through them with the board. I know in reviewing the application, I'll start and seeing what my colleagues had written down. You know, we have some questions about facility and what your backup plan might be in case that you're not able to move into the school that you're planning. There was a question or two around your mission statement. I'm interested in learning more about your SEL plans. I've heard you talk about it here this morning, but want to know how you plan to put that into practice as part of your everyday educational plan. There was a question around the social worker and when that position is actually budgeted. And then I think some questions around just the board itself in terms of the number of board members and connection to this area. So I'll stop with that. Anyone else on either committee have questions that we want to make sure we give them time to respond to today?
I have some, Bruce. Around EC, it's clear that you understand EC, the continuum services is all there, but the plan doesn't back that up. And so I'm interested in how you're planning to meet the needs of all those students, because it looked more like it was a consultative model for all students. There didn't seem to be even resource, and so just an understanding of that. And then when you sent us the revised budget, it said it changed from an EC teacher to an EC director, and I want to understand how that made a difference for how the model is going to get served. In the ed plan, I really want to understand what Socratic inquiry looks like for math in K2, and when is there ever any direct instruction of mathematics? I didn't see a time for that. A better understanding of what a culturally relevant project-based assessment that addresses a community social issue looks like for a 5-year-old. And the model itself, one of the real strengths of the model is the two-teacher model, and a lot of the research that you said supports that. And then when you change the budget, you change the 2 teachers to interns. So I kind of have to understand how that works.
Thank you, Chair Turner.
And I also had questions about the mission statement. The word endeavor to me implies I'm working toward, as opposed to what the school will offer or provide. I think a revision of the mission statement would be on point. And then I was wondering about the enrollment, starting with K2. From experience from other schools who started with K2, seemingly they had trouble getting those numbers, those kids to enroll. And I feel like since they want to be at K8, it would be good to start with the K5. And then we have the ADM as well. I also wanted to know how you will teach math classes. I know the M in STEM stands for mathematics, but I don't recall seeing where you have definite math classes, where you have more quality time for math. And did I miss whether you were going to attend the RTO trainings as part of your getting prepared? And to me, that is the best training a new board can have, and then can serve too as a refresher for seasoned board members. And I too would like to know about projects in the real world that your students will solve what kinds of problems in their communities. And let's see. Oh, you mentioned that when you, that when you interview your board members, you will interview and and then you said, then you will vote in closed session. I want to make sure the board understands open meetings law and closed session. And then to make sure you document time-wise when you go into and exit closed sessions. And Mr. Chair, that's all for right now.
Thank you. Any others, CSAB members that we want to get some questions out that they can start thinking about? And Rita, I know you're on the line as well, so Stoops.
Yes. My questions revolved around human resources, specifically teacher recruitment and retention, and the setting of wages in the budget that don't seem to be consistent or competitive with the types of jobs that are available in Wake County and the salaries that are offered by the competitors in Wake County.
And Mr. Friend, I also had additional questions related to that as well. I didn't feel like salaries were high enough, especially where they talked about the assistance that they would have, although I know they changed that. And then there was salary for their elective teachers was significantly low. And also when they talk, I would like them to speak more about the demand for the school, because they do talk about that they will be 13% of the population at LEA, which is pretty significant. So again, just speak to how they feel that that is attainable.
Anyone else?
Mr. Friggin?
Okay.
Yes, this is Rita. It's already been mentioned, and I think I will elaborate just slightly. In the ed plan, they put forth so many instructional strategies and methods that it would be nice to just hear them address the focus of that ed plan and the really the foundation of what they plan to use for classroom instruction. There's a lot there, and then that leads into teacher training, professional development, and how you'd actually make all that happen. They have a very, I did want to say, I think they put forth a good application and a good budget. They did a good job with this. They have a board with a rich set of experiences, and I just wondered if any of the board members down the road plan to provide any paid services in marketing, financial, consulting, curriculum, because I know they have that capacity. Obviously, they couldn't do it as a board member, but I just wondered if that's in their thinking. And they mentioned transportation, and my notes, I might be confused, but I think they said if they live further than 1.5 miles from the school, they're providing transportation. And I just wondered, what about those students that still can't get there? 1.5 miles just too great. What would we do about their transportation?
And
Thank you. I think that's.
I just had I enjoyed reading the application as well, and like Rita, I felt like there was a lot of stuff in there. I mean, it's great, and maybe that's stuff that gets phased in over time. Like specific math curriculum that aligns with like the testing that the state does, and then it also talked about benchmarks being in-house or in-house made benchmarks. Any thought about using external benchmarking companies like TE21 or CASE that can generate maybe not subjective benchmarking to give you a better picture of what how students are performing?
Great. So let's go ahead and I'll try to refine some of these questions, and other board members can add in as well. But let's maybe start with some of them that won't take quite as long, perhaps, to answer. So we can get to particularly once we get into the ed plan. But am I correct? And I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, Miss. Thank you. Just to clarify, you are or are not on the board?
I'm not on the board, so I'm the proposed head of school.
Okay, and so you currently have 4 board members. What number are you looking to get at? What is in your bylaws?
We have 5. So by the time we submitted our application, we were at 4, but we were still actively recruiting board members, and we still are. So we're officially at 5, and so Dr. Kimberly Harris is our 5th.
Okay.
So we included her on the sheet that we needed to see.
Yeah, and I won't rehash everyone's expansive experience. It's a board that brings a lot to the table, I think. Just, I'm curious, are any of you connected to the communities of East and Southeast Raleigh? Like what what has your interest in that particular part of Wake County? Is there because your board is from Wake, Durham, Guilford. What is unique about, or what's the relationship to that part of Raleigh?
So for my part,
You can stand
You
up.
come to the podium.
it's a new model, it's a new world. So, good afternoon again. So for my part, my connection to North Carolina in general, I have 6 different licenses in the state of North Carolina, teaching license. Initially did my student teaching in Durham, but lived in East Raleigh towards the Garner side. And so I've had an opportunity to both live, volunteer, and have my students, my children, in the school system in Wake, and particularly in that particular zip code. So even though I am from Durham, and when I moved back from DC, I moved there to be near my family, I still have a strong interest in Southeast and Northeast Raleigh. So that's my connection, having lived in that area.
Are there any other board members that have a similar?
I want to say that, and this is Dr. Bryant, I am a native of North Carolina, so I'm born and raised and spent a lot of time, and I worked in the school system as well as the colleges here for about 12 years or so altogether. And so I'm immensely familiar. I was even running for political offices years ago, but we won't get into all of that. But let's just say I am immensely familiar with North Carolina, especially with Durham, Raleigh, and that area. And I also went to UNC Chapel Hill. So it is a key area when it comes down to really the types of disadvantaged students that we're trying to actually get to here.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Camus. I actually live in Southeast Raleigh currently, so not in the 27610, but actually in the 27601, which is right next door. And I've lived there ever since relocating back to North Carolina about 6 years ago.
And this is Dr. Kimberly Harris. I similarly educated in North Carolina. I did my graduate work at North Carolina State, even though I did my undergraduate work at UNC Chapel Hill, so go figure that out. And then I recently stepped down as a board member of a grassroots community organization based in Southeast Raleigh, prioritizing these populations called the Friends Committee of Raleigh.
Thank you very much for that. And just last question that I have for board is are you all committed to participating, each and every one of you, in the RTO process?
Absolutely are.
Okay. Why don't we shift to, because I want to be cognizant of the time to get into that. Go ahead.
I noticed that you're education heavy. Have you considered other areas to diversify your board, such as someone in finance, human resources,
So
real estate?
we are actively recruiting board members, one in finance, one in law.
Okay.
Really, this has been a point of conversation that we've had as we seek to move towards 8 to 11 board members versus the minimum 5 that we've stated in our application.
When you're speaking, if you don't mind, if you could speak into the microphone, because
If I can
the world can't hear you over there.
If I can just add to what Ansel said, we are also looking to diversify further, to possibly add an attorney. I'm a bit of a diversified member because I am a social worker amongst a bunch of educators, so I consider myself to be sort of a point of diversity as well for the board.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, as far as the governance is concerned, we've had a lot of these conversations, out of all of what you said, even the questions you all were talking about, which are some excellent questions. I feel like we y'all get on our board meetings because we have discussed a lot of this, and we look forward to it. But definitely expanding the board and getting those additional expertise in there is going to be key, and we look forward
And
to
I'll
doing
just
that very soon.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bryant. I'll just quickly say I am not an educator. I do education research K through 20, and I'm a trained economist with an MBA. So rarely is any of my work involved in actual classroom instruction, but actually doing evaluation and research.
Why don't we move into some questions around the education plan itself? There's questions about math.
Particularly, that seemed to be, several people had that. So if you could talk to us about math instruction and what that's going to look like.
Before we move into math instruction, I wanted to frame everything. I've heard several comments, and we did have an opportunity to review extensively the feedback, which we greatly appreciated from all of the evaluators. It does look like we're doing a lot, and we are doing a lot. Public schools are required to do a great deal. We're not just academics. We are social, we are emotional, we are learning. So yes, we want to admit up front that we're doing a lot. We also want to say that all of this will not be done at one time, so I hope that that assuages fears. The other piece is that everything we're doing is framed. It is bounded, it is contextualized, it is situation in the idea of frameworks that undergird everything we do. So, for example, one of the questions was about the consultative versus the continuum of services with exceptional children. We are multi-tiered systems of support. My doctorate is actually in response to intervention and what that looks like when we bring the other side of the triangle together with social, emotional, and behavioral learning. So for almost 20 years, I've done research around how we use frameworks and take a whole bunch of programs, whether they be grassroots programs that have been developed or curriculums that are boxed and brought in, how we take that and put it within a framework to make it work for children and individualize. So everything that we do is going to be on the foundation of multi-tiered systems of support. What has happened in special education, I know your background and I know you know this, sometimes we wait for kids to fail. And so what we're trying to do is catch the kids before they fall. And so we want to use this MTSS approach to make sure that we're doing some of this instruction at core so that we don't have to do as much intervention at tier 2 and tier 3. Certainly there is an aspect of consultative services in our EC plan, but we are planning to offer the continuum of services. We know research says, Cavalli and others have talked about the fact that inclusive education, not just included in the classroom, but inclusivity across the school day, but particularly inclusion in classrooms is what is best for students who are differently abled. And so we want to make sure with our two-teacher model that we have educators in the classroom that have expertise both in their content area, but also in special education. The two-teacher model is one of the key aspects of our program, and what happened when we began to look at our budget, we initially didn't realize that we didn't get the reimbursements for lunches until after year 1, and so we had to go back and rethink our model. We are still looking at a two-teacher model, but if you get into the nuts and bolts of it, how that looks differently now than it did initially was that we already have developed partnerships with my alma mater. UNC Chapel Hill is in conversation with us. We've met with the people at the School of Ed there, both at North Carolina Central, St. Augustine's, as well as Shaw University. So we already had a pipeline of student teachers, both at the master's and undergraduate level, that will be feeding to us. So our IAs, that terminology may be a bit misleading. We're not looking at paraprofessionals. You're looking at people who are either in their master's program and are coming over to finish their work that they need to acquire that master's or that add-on licensure, or people that are in their last 6 months or year of their teacher education program that are going to be coming over, particularly looking at those who are getting that background in special education. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just want to, we have 7 minutes and we have a lot of ground to cover. So I'm
just
gonna,
wanted to give you that.
Yeah, thank you
So
for
then
that. But we're gonna need probably one person per question to answer and be very succinct in your answers.
Math was the question.
Yeah, so we're still at math. Talk to us about what math's gonna look like.
Dr. Cameron, do you want to take on that question?
Is she here?
You may have to be into a microphone.
Morgan.
Sorry,
Dr. Cameron,
everybody.
can you hear me?
Yeah, so math instruction, there will be direct instruction, so I want to allay any fears. We have, just for the sake of making it meaningful and critical thinking and collaborative, really thought of a transdisciplinary approach. So math is part of the STEM, so the M in STEM is the M in math block. And so every day kids, depending on their ages, will have at least 60 minutes in STEM transdisciplinary time, of which there will be rotations. And so with the two-teacher model, absolutely kids are going to get direct instruction in math from a lead teacher or from a teacher's assistant every single day as part of that 60-minute rotation. And then we're going to extend that learning in 30-minute sort of applied learning chunks, depending on the age of the child, in addition to that core direct instruction.
So there was a question about what Socratic inquiry may look like for kindergarten through 2nd grade. I think, Ms. Turner, you asked that question. And so I just wanted to frame that with math, right? Our students, when they're engaged in our CGI problem-solving block, have open-ended questions that they are exploring, and it's facilitated through Socratic inquiry. And so I just wanted to add that onto what Dr. Kimby was saying.
Okay, what about this project-based, going to be community-based and the kid is 5. So tell me about that.
So part of the framing of IB, part of the framing for IB is a transdisciplinary theme, right? And so the theme may be sharing the planet. It might be how the world works, how we organize ourselves. PYP is meant for K to 5, and then we move into grades 6 through 8, we're looking at the NYP concepts. And so the concepts begin with very elementary form function. What is it? How does it work? It moves into connection, it moves into causation, and so there is a trajectory of concepts that students explore. And so while our 4th graders and 5th graders may be doing a call to action with, indigenous peoples and educating others about the way the land was used, right? Our kindergartners and 1st graders are looking at community in a smaller way, right? They're thinking about the improvements that they're making in their grade, in their school, on their block, right? And comparing and contrasting as they're moving up. How the project that they may have completed in quarter 1, how we may broaden that to looking at the neighborhood that we live in, the block that we live in, and just kind of broadening that impact as we move towards 6 through 8. And that's also where inquiry lives too.
So are you going to be an IB school?
So we used IB as a framing. It is a conversation that we've had that conversation a few times, and I'm sure we'll revisit it again. But we are not officially an IB school going in. We've thought about the financial impact. We've thought about some programming pieces and how it fits with our key design elements. But we do use it as a framing. And so IB really frames, what do we want students to learn? How will they learn? How best will they learn it? And how will we know that they have learned it? And that allows us to really think about our planned curriculum, our taught curriculum, and the assessed curriculum. And so all of the things that I know we are doing a lot, but all of our key design elements live within those umbrellas and allow us to integrate in a more meaningful way for our students.
Have y'all ever seen this done anywhere?
So yes. So I was a founding member at Ember Charter School in Brooklyn. We have a very similar population of students. Actually, the percentage of economically disadvantaged students is much higher. And so I was a founding member there, and later on the leadership team where I mentored K to 8 teachers, supported their instruction and aligned them to our frameworks. This is a school that outperforms their city, their district, and in ELA, their state. And so several of those frameworks, from culturally relevant pedagogy to the neuroscience and how that's rooted in our instruction and connected to our SEL program, Socratic inquiry has been adopted from Ember Charter School.
Other questions from CSAB members?
About the budget stuff. Budget questions, HR and budget questions.
Yeah. Dr. Stoops, you want to follow up on your budget question?
Yeah. The salaries that were stated in the budget seem a little low for what you would face in Wake County in competition with teachers and administrators. Wake County's local supplement is nearly $9,000. Their supplement for a principal is nearly $27,000, and so given the environment in which you would face having to recruit and retain teachers, the salaries that are listed in the budget are low, and Lynn's question about the salaries for the elective teachers being extraordinarily low, I think is apropos, because those salaries that were listed there were comparable to what a Wake County teacher assistant would make, and that's someone that doesn't have the kind of qualifications that would be required to have an elective position.
Dr. Bryant, did you want to take that question?
Yes, we try to be very careful as to how we, put that together. And so, based on the research that we had looking at the surrounding schools, so we looked at several of them to try to make certain that we were within that particular gamut. But yes, if you look at all of those schools, including some of the top schools, you may get where you are there. But we tried to centralize it a bit in the area to see if we couldn't get a salary that was still competitive, and that we would grow to the point where we would be, at that full area that you're talking about.
So I also just wanted to note...
it is indeed something that we're looking at. Mm-hmm.
I also just wanted to note that our elective teachers for year 1 are part-time employees, and so they're going to be teaching 29 hours or lower per week. And if you look at our daily our weekly schedule rather, you'll notice that they're teaching Monday to Thursday, and Friday is really allotted for professional development. And as we grow into full-time employees in year 2 for our elective teachers, they will be taking on other aspects of our SEL program through like art therapy and other forms. And so that's why their initial salary for year 1 is low. For our teacher salaries, we have 2 different lead teachers that are listed there. One is our mentor teacher. One is our mentor teacher, and then the other is our beginning teacher. And so we looked at those salaries as a 0 to 2 years of experience for our beginning teacher, and then our 3 to 5 years or more for our mentor teachers, and then looked at what salary we can give as to be competitive, right? And so we came to starting at 2.5% higher than those salaries, and then having a 1.5% increase each year. And then additionally, we've looked at the benefits that we're providing our teachers, and so we are beginning with, I thought you guys had it up. Okay, sorry. We are beginning with the state healthcare plan for year 1. Year 1 through 5, and then thought about our retirement plan. And so we've budgeted 5% an increase per year, 1, to be conservative, but 2, we wanted to make sure we're providing retirement and health benefits that are competitive with the county.
So we're at 25 minutes. I'll give one last question before we go into closing statements, if anyone has.
I think one of the was noted is the facility plan and how confident CASA is in where they're going and how firm that is, and if there's a need for a backup plan. Kind of it just says it, and there's the letter of intent, but I think we need to know more about what.
So we've also submitted 2 additional letters from CASA, and so. We've had a number of conversations with them. It seems like they're confident. They're building a new facility, and so it seems like they're confident that they're on the correct timeline to having that space available for us in fall 2022. We know that every section of our application, right, whether we're talking about facilities or our school lunch plan or every section, we know we need a contingency plan. And so we have been speaking to our partners at the Boys and Girls Club, the Daniel Center for Math and Science, several other nonprofit organizations in that particular area, and asking other people, making those connections about what available facilities might we have in case we need that backup and CASA's not ready to move into that facility for fall 2022.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. I would note that because you're asking for acceleration, that can't be a question. Right. So if you're moved forward to a second interview, that there has to be an answer to that question. Not a we're looking into it.
Got it.
So we're going to grant you 10 minutes for a closing statement.
So we didn't get to speak to the compelling need, and so I will begin with that. And then we have 2 other pieces, and Dr. Church will join me for the rest of the closing. There are 4 big reasons, aside from facilities and nonprofit partnerships that we've made, or local universities that are excited to join us and partner with us in the future. But there are 4 big reasons that we're looking to open Revitalized Charter School next year and did not apply for a traditional timeline, right? The fall 2023. 1 was academic failure for high-need students in Wake County. 2, overcapacity in schools. 3, ineffective curriculum for those high-need students, and I'll define what I mean by high-need students in just a second. And then last, I won't call it post-COVID, although I did mention that as the reason in the application, and I will say it's more of a COVID impact since we're not out of COVID just yet, right? So academic failure, we looked at this in 2 ways. 1, we looked at the target location that we're looking to establish ourselves in long term, which is the 27610 zip code. 5 out of 8 of those schools have received an F or D rating for several years. And the 27616, that's where our facility is located, 3 out of 6 of them fall under that category. When we look at students with disabilities, all 10 of those schools are failing students with disabilities and have been labeled as continuously underperforming subgroup according to Wake County. Wake County also released that, so when I'm looking at every one of those schools, there are other subgroups that have been deeply impacted by a lack of differentiation, by a lack of holistic, lack of a holistic approach to learning, and that's our Black students, our Hispanic students, and our English language learners. We're talking about overcapacity in schools. 6 out of 8 of the schools in the 27610 area have a facility utilization over 100%. 2 of them one of them at 106%, one of them at 159% before trailers, and even with trailers, they're still over capacity. And so while Wake County does release a list of capped schools, when we look at the facility utilization report, it also tells us a different story, that there are many other schools that fall under that category or are very close to that number, right? Very close to that 100%. And then when we mentioned ineffective curriculum and differentiation, I'll speak about it through the lens of math since math did come up. Wake County Public Schools has one math curriculum for the county. And so there is a specific pacing guide that across the county, K through 8, and there's a separate one for high school, will follow. Not just the curriculum, but the pacing. And so it's problematic because it doesn't take into account where students begin, where they end, what they need support in, and they come in when students are not performing at that level. It's reactive. What Revitalized Charter School is looking to do is through our universal screeners that cover social emotional learning, through our core academics, meet our students where they are and differentiate for that from the beginning and by design, right? And so lastly, I'll speak about COVID. We're not post-COVID just yet, but we are thinking about how COVID has impacted our students. And I know everyone has been a part of a conversation where an academic achievement gap has been spoken about. What doesn't get spoken about enough is the social emotional impact for our students and for their families. We know that a disproportionate amount of economically disadvantaged students have been affected by COVID. We know that some of them have watched their families become very ill or pass away, right? All while sitting behind their screen and virtually learning with the county, right? Along with the rest of our country. And so we are prepared to think about what social emotional learning looks like as our students come to us next fall, with pending state approval, of course, but come to us next fall and think about that in a proactive way. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Dr. Church, we'd like to end with a quote from Pedagogy of the Oppressed that really speaks to our why, our mission. And it says, education either functions as an instrument which is used to facilitate integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity, or it becomes the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. At Revitalized Charter School, we want our students to engage with their community, with their learning, in a way that asks them, they're asked themselves, why not me, why not now? And really empower them to take leadership in their communities, in the various communities that they connect with. And so we're hoping that through this type of learning, our students will be prepared to be leaders, right? To be innovators in taking part in the transformation of their world.
So, as you mentioned, 25 minutes is so short, and so much was brought up. And a couple of things that I wanted to speak to in closing. One of the things when you look at this quote from the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you're looking at not just about children, but we talked about changing the trajectory of communities. And what we do internally and how that affects children's families and the communities that they come from. We talked about we didn't touch on it, but it's throughout our application. We look at the 6 legislative purposes of charters. And one of the main things is about professional development for teachers. One of our key principles is about building a better teacher. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Elizabeth Green and some of the research that she did with Uncommon Schools and with Doug LeBlanc and others. But we talked about this idea that initially when charters came in, we came in with this idea of policies and procedures and things to standardize and pull and lift children and communities out of poverty, but the critical thought, the inquiry that needed to help kids go to and through. I can speak to the charter that I was at. Our melt rates were terrible. So we got kids into college, but they didn't stay. And we got kids through school, but they didn't come back to their communities. So one of the things that we need to be looking at as we're looking at building professional development, building teachers, professional teachers, is that part of our recruitment is not just about the financial pieces, but it's about what we're offering in our building to support building a better teacher. And what that looks like in terms of teacher recruitment and retention. And part of that is this mentorship model. Part of this is this idea of teacher autonomy. Other professionals get treated like professionals, and teachers get treated like paraprofessionals, to your point. And some of that is about the lack of funding for teachers, but some of it is about the lack of professional autonomy. Certainly we're not going to allow teachers to just run amok. They're going to be supported and facilitated by experienced teacher leaders, through strong professional development, undergirded by these very powerful frameworks that we're talking about through IB and multi-tiered systems of support. But we're also going to offer opportunities for teachers to learn, to grow, and to experience, so that we don't just change the trajectory of children and communities, but also we need to recruit teachers, period, not just at Revitalized, but across the state and across the country. And can we be a flagship model for how that's done, not just in our small space, but across the state and throughout the region and country? You did speak to the notion of making sure we understood what we meant by fiduciary responsibilities for openness. Absolutely. We know that our meetings need to be publicized. We know that our conversation about potential board members will be done in private. That voting will certainly be made public. We have a very innovative website that Ansel has built on our behalf, and our board meetings, the links for those meetings will be posted along with the agendas. Certainly, once COVID restrictions lift, people will be invited into our space to participate in those meetings. So we understand, certainly, in terms of governance, what we need to do in that realm. There was just so much. So I can't, certainly can't speak to everything, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to follow up. But in closing, I just wanted to again thank for the opportunity to come, to speak, to share. We hope that what you got out of this was that we have a commitment to all sides of the triangle to make sure that we're not just looking at academics, that we're also looking at social, emotional, and behavioral learning for kids. We hope that you got out of this that we're not just about in opposition to what has been, but how to partner with and work together to reimagine and rethink what public education and professionalism in education means. We hope that you got from our work that we are ready and committed to partner with organizations in the community to make this dream, this vision possible, and we endeavor. People can tell you what they're going to do, but the proof is in the pudding. When we get our hands in there, there are going to be things that are different from what we had imagined. But that endeavor piece doesn't mean that we're not committed to doing it. What we're saying is, let's be realistic, let's be measured in our responses, but certainly we're going to move forward. Endeavor is a strong word from the Latin, and it doesn't mean sort of, kind of, and maybe. It means that we are pushing forward in a militaristic way, and we're not going to be turned one way or the left from what we are planning to do and what we're striving to do for children. So thank you so much. I don't know if I got everything, but we really appreciate the opportunity to share this thing that we've been really excited about for the past year and a half, and so excited to show you what we know and hope that you will believe in our dreams too.
Thank you. That was 9 minutes and 59 seconds. You could not have.
You are good. See, 10 minutes.
If that's how you run a school, that works well. So we do have 10 minutes for CSAD deliberation, and this is just for us. We will not. You may hear us make comments and questions, but that's really for our discussion. We'd only ask you to clarify if. Yeah. I want to go to the mic. If we ask you to go to the mic, basically is what I'm saying. So I'll open up for questions, comments, and again, our decision point here this afternoon is one of three things. We can either vote to move them forward to the state board with the recommendation to approve, or we could recommend not to approve, or we can invite them back next month for further questions and answers. Those questions and answers would be questions that we send to them in writing that they would respond back to, and our second interview would really be focused on those questions. So.
I really feel their energy. I really feel their commitment. Smooth. Of course, work out a few kinks. but I am determined, I'm convinced that they can make the school what they want it to be.
I kind of feel the same way. I'm very excited about the model. I think if this works, it's scary. It'll be awesome. I think that they're going to wake up on September whatever when they open and find out the world isn't going to go quite as smoothly as you currently have it set up. But I feel like they'll be able to work around it, and they'll be able to make it work. And they're willing to do it for kids who really, really need it. And so I really, not only would I like to see the school go forward, I really want to see it work. I don't want it to just go forward and then 3 years from now we're talking about, why it didn't work. I really want to see it work.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Cheryl, and I'm very impressed, and I do feel all the energy and excitement that you guys have and your passion for this school. My biggest concern is not having a facility contingency plan in place. That really needs to be solid. That was probably my biggest hang up on this application.
And it's a requirement for acceleration.
And yes, and it is a requirement for acceleration.
And Lynn, to kind of piggyback on that, I would think that, as we noted earlier, that the board is heavy with educational experience. Just knowing from prior experience myself to have folks on there that understand the business world, that can help with facilities, folks on there that understand the construction and engineering side of things, and just the finances of all that goes into that, will help take the stress off of your ability to focus on what's happening in the school and in the classrooms, and let somebody else help negotiate the other stuff.
A clarifying question: was it said that they are under the impression, and maybe this has changed and I didn't know this, that the child nutrition reimbursement for the first year, they took it out of the budget?
They took it out their budget because they're not guaranteed to get it in the first year.
They're not guaranteed to get reimbursed?
Right, because they have to go through the whole child nutrition process. They theoretically could get through it before then, but in the last, I'd say 3 years, we haven't had anybody who managed to do it.
Who was able to start with the child nutrition program?
And that's the people who were doing it on the 2-year plan.
Yeah, so it's because they're accelerated. They would be opening they'd be open a year from today.
Okay. One concern that does come up, I'm supportive. I think they'll figure out some of the things that they need to figure out. Having a close relationship with one charter already in Southeast Raleigh, we didn't get to hear as much about enrollment, and I know they had struggled with some enrollment pieces. I don't know the landscape, so I'm not gonna have any conjecture or guesswork with that. With regard to the staffing, and that's why I brought up the budget thing about child nutrition. When you go to what are they calling it, teachers in residence or whatever, from the local universities, as well as part-time employees with the elective staff, you're going to start getting, if you look at it, I looked at all 5 years, you're going to start getting a really big portion of the staff that are not full salaried, like everyday people. It gets pretty big. In year 1, it's 10 out of 15, but by the time you get to year 5, it's 24 out of 63. And that's, like, I would want to lead a school where 24 people are on full salary, full time, there for all my PDs, there for all my cultural stuff. Like, that would concern me. I think that's one of those things they'll figure out and not do and tweak, but it is an initial concern as it's written.
I strongly disagree with the premise of pedagogy of the oppressed, but that's okay. Making me happy on that account isn't a requirement for your charter. The need is there. And the fact that you're willing to identify the need and put forth the effort and resources to serve children that desperately need it, I think is commendable. So thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly, but to Mr. Sanchez's point, the number that stuck out to me here was when you look at a zip code and your student body being roughly 13% of that zip code. I think they've got to come back for a second time anyway, because of the facility thing. I think I would like to understand the plan for recruiting that significant number of students from one zip code.
I'll chime in and say I agree with all of my fellow CSEP members. When you're sitting on this end of the table, you get a sense pretty quickly whether we're dealing with a board that has the passion, energy, and ability to pull something like this off. And as I met you for the first time today, I very much get that sense that you can do this. The acceleration of it gives me a little bit of pause. I wish you had 2 years to pull this off instead of the one in planning, but I do think the need is definitely there. I would like 25 minutes is such a short amount of time as you just experienced, so I kind of would like to get a little bit more information about your enrollment. The contingency plan on facility is a big one, and maybe a little bit more on some of the SEL as part of the everyday instructional plan. But I do feel good about this overall application, and I feel good about this board.
Mr. Friend?
Yes, Ms. Hare, go ahead.
This is Rita Hare. They, when you look for the parent surveys and the evidence of support, which is part of the acceleration, the need and the demand, their survey to the parents gives the date of fall 2023. So to me, that indicates we don't have any data for fall of 2022. I wonder if they could speak to that if they do have the data.
Is that a typo?
Yeah, so when I...
Oh, it's Appendix A, and it's throughout. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we saw that as the feedback. So families got 2022, but when we went to go screenshot the Survey Monkey, it kept giving us the original one because we originally set that survey at fall 2023, but everyone who has filled out that survey, and it's on our QR code on our business card, has it as fall 2022. And that's been clear on our website, on our social media site, on our business card, and with all conversations with families who have taken that survey.
Okay, very good.
Any other comments from CSAT members?
I think just with the concerns of facilities and staffing, other than that, really feel your energy and your drive. Yeah, I feel like you can make it happen with the things I mentioned addressed.
Do you have anyone who wants to make a motion? I will.
Well, let me ask a question. I know that we definitely have to have the contingency on facility because that's a requirement for acceleration. I know that we're also trying to limit the number of people we bring back because we learned from last year that if you bring everybody back, it really does stretch out your life. Do we have questions that are so pressing that we actually need to talk to them again, or could we just get the information?
So my understanding, and maybe Dave or Ashley clarify, my understanding is that if we invite them an invite back for a second round interview, is that between now today, we would provide them out of this committee would provide them questions to respond to. They have to respond within 10 days. And so theoretically, when they come back in October, we may not have any, we may be completely satisfied with their answers to those questions that we just vote then and there, and they don't even have to take the microphone, or we might want them to clarify what they wrote in response to our question. But the second interview could only address the questions that we present to them between now and later this week, I guess. Am I correct?
That is the way we tried to set it up, but you certainly are not limited to just those questions. If you need further clarification on anything that they talked about today, but I know you're not asking for my opinion, but the fact that we do need to get some clarification on their facility, I think a second interview is warranted, so they can give us some really good data of what's gonna happen if CASA doesn't move out.
But if they put that answer in writing, and in our prep for the October board meeting, we're satisfied with it, we don't have to do another 45-minute.
That is
interview.
correct.
It could be 5 minutes.
In that case, I'm willing to make a motion. I move that we bring Revitalized Charter back for a second interview in October.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion to bring Revitalize back in October for a second interview. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We probably need to do roll call.
Yeah, I think so, for roll call.
All right, we'll do roll call then. Thank you.
All right, Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Shelley Bowler, Eric Sanchez,
Aye.
John Elrich.
Aye.
All right.
It's unanimous. See you in October.
Can I ask a clarifying question of staff? It says in the directions that the committee lead is responsible for generating and or collecting second round questions from fellow committee members. But if I can the questions only come from committee members or from anyone on CSAB?
From anyone on
And
CSAB.
and how soon do I need to have those questions to you?
As soon as possible, I would say. When you feel you've had a time to gather those, and then if you just want to shoot me an email, and I'll get it to Melanie. And then Revitalized board, we will work with Revitalized to make sure that they understand they have 10 calendar days to get it back to our office, and then we forward it to you guys. And that way you have time to review it. We also are trying to make sure that we are limiting applicants from specifically answering the questions and the request for documentation rather than sending in, what we've had in previous years where now I'm gonna give you a new application sort of thing. Yeah, it has to be specific to what's requested. And so that will help you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mr. Friend, it might be easier too, as committee chairs, that we say we need those comments from the rest of the board by a certain date
Yeah.
after the
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what we consider.
Is it
would be
okay
reasonable.
as committee chair to just create a Google Doc and have board members, CSAB members put their question in a Google Doc and then we kind of clean it up from there?
Yeah, that should be fine.
We'll do that.
Yep.
That'll work.
All right, so we have a 15-minute break, and then we will get to our next application.
I have to leave the room, dude.
Share a document anyway. If Cheryl sees the question.
To the same one over,
Just way too long.
For after lunch?
It's better than the old ones. Remember that?
You're talking about like a straight.
Still pre-war.
Yeah, that's what they had before.
Oh, gosh.
But now this has a big space.
Yeah.
I can't adjust to that. Oops.
Who's the group again with the PD? The professional development guy?
It would come from Barbara O'Neill.
She's with Access.
Yeah, that's the access. I'll ask her to send. You want it to go to you or Caitlin?
I think my other colleague has been involved in this.
Okay.
So, I think he's bought. South here.
Good afternoon, Melanie Rackley here with the Office of Charter Schools. Our next applicant today is a fast track replication applicant, Johnston Preparatory Academy. They intend to open in the 27520 zip code in year one, serving grades 7 through 9 with 293 students, I'm sorry. In year two, they will service grades kindergarten through 10 with 1,072 students. Year three, moving to K-11 with 1,282. Year four, K-12 with 1,472 students. And then finally, year five, they will reach capacity at K-12 with 1,572 students. Johnston Preparatory Academy will provide food service through an NHA-approved food vendor. They will not offer transportation services outside of their EC student population. They will not utilize weighted lottery. They do have a slated facility. There is not an LEA impact that has been submitted at this time. They are not a repeat applicant board. And yes, they are partnering with National Heritage Academy for their CMO services, and their application was deemed complete at the time of submission. Taking a look at their map. Okay, this is the 27520 zip code. In red, you'll see their proposed location. The green schools are the LEA district schools, and then they have bordering to the west, the Johnston Charter Academy is the charter school within a 10-mile radius, and we went with a 10-mile radius just given the rural nature of Johnston County. I will turn this over. The board will have 10 minutes, to make their introduction and opening statement. So I'll turn the floor over now to Johnston Preparatory Academy. You're welcome.
Hi guys, good afternoon. It's been a while since I've done this, so I jotted down all of my notes. I wasn't going to go on the fly. So, good afternoon. My name is Brooke Holmes. I'm the chair of the board of directors for the proposed Johnston Preparatory Academy. Thank you all for inviting us today, and we appreciate your commitment to the students and families of North Carolina. As residents and engaged citizens of Johnston County, we fully understand the need for additional high-quality school seats in our community, and schools in our area are extremely overcrowded. The local school district is currently operating above 100% of faculty facilities. Capacities. With me today are the members of our board, Jason Thompson, who serves as our vice chair. He is also medical examiner and mayor pro tempore of Clayton. Chris Parsons, who is our treasurer. He is the finance expert and also employed as a VP with First Citizens Bank. Denise Bird, who is a retired administrator in the Johnston County Public School System. She served over 30 years as a teacher, principal, and director of human resources. Not present today is our secretary, who is Myrtle Early, and she has over 30 years of marketing experience with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. Also with us today are team members from National Heritage Academies. Dave Unger, who is present virtually. He is the executive director of high schools. Doug Howard, who is the director of school quality and former principal of Greensboro Academy. And Jeff Ichesco, who is the manager of new school development. We are proposing a replication rationale. We are proposing Johnston Prep as a K-12 school, and based on high demand for new high-quality schools in the area. Families have overwhelmingly shared their welcome for our new school in the community. I currently serve as board chair for Johnston Charter Academy. For years, parents at Johnston Charter Academy have shown interest in high school. It was something that they wanted from day one. We pursued NHA to provide this model based on satisfaction and demand from the current JCA families. Our intention is to replicate JCA's model, given its location, demand from families, and success with a similar student population. Due to COVID, JCA does not have 3 years of publicly available accountability data. To date, the school is outperforming local school district and the closest located schools and has met expected growth. Understanding that JCA does not have 3 years of data, we are also proposing to replicate Wake Forest Charter Academy, a successful National Heritage Academy partner school in Wake County. Wake Forest maintains a similarly high level of rigor to what we propose, and it also produces academic outcomes that are regularly stronger than the local school district. Similar to JCA, Wake Forest maintains clean audits and balanced budgets on an annual basis. JCA and Wake Forest both serve grades K through 8. After replicating their model, due to in part for their successful track record and high quality choices for families, we also intend to replicate the program utilized by our management partner, NHA. NHA operates 98 schools across the nation, 14 of which are located in North Carolina. Although it does not currently have partners with high schools in the state of North Carolina, they also maintain and operate 7 in the state of Michigan. The high schools outperform other schools in their areas, and the state averages in enrollment are high level, and they also have high level of college acceptance rates. Mr. Unger can answer any questions you have about the high school portion pertaining to NHA. As the introduction showed, our intention is to begin school at opening with grades 7 through 9, and then 2023 open grades K through 10, and then 2024 11th, and then 2025 12th grade. As the board chair of JCA, we did consider expanding the current school to add high schools, but to add high school grades. However, we felt the best was proposing Johnston Prep as a new school, given the demand in our county, and with currently having over 1,000 students on the Johnston Charter Academy wait list. We envision Johnston Prep as a sister school to JCA and will execute an articulation agreement between the boards in the event that our application is approved. We do not have a target student population, and intend to mirror the student populations of JCA, Johnston County Public Schools, and Wake County Public Schools. While the application requires us to include percentages of enrollment, we anticipate we will be ready to serve all students of all needs. The benefit of our partnership with NHA is their commitment to provide our school with all the necessary resources to be a successful school. As noted, Johnston County is the fastest growing county in North Carolina. Businesses and industries continue to invest in our community, bringing tremendous population growth as family moves to the area. While we welcome these opportunities, the schools are also playing catch up. Enrollment projections show that Johnston County Public Schools are operating above facility capacities at a rate that only are expected to increase. They're currently at 104%. Consider the following. 13 of our 23 elementary schools are over capacity by more than 600 students. 5 of our 11 middle schools are over capacity this year as well. Our high schools are more than 1,000 students over facility capabilities. As a whole, the county school system is overwhelmed. Without new schools, the county public schools are projected to grow to 114% capacity in 4 years. As I stated earlier, JCA's current wait list is over 1,000 students. This list spans across both our elementary and middle school grades. Like I previously said, parents have asked for a high school for years, since the beginning of Johnston Charter Academy. We surveyed all of the families, and nearly 95% of the respondents indicated they were very likely to enroll in a high school if we opened one. Our board understands Johnston Prep would be our school. We govern the school. We will be responsible for the academic, operational, and financial success and sustainability. With that being said, we are partnering with National Heritage Academies to provide the day-to-day operations of the school. We elected to do this based on the successful track record of the 14 North Carolina schools, including Johnston Charter Academy. In partnership with NHA, we intend to offer a proven 12K model that has produced successful results with many different student populations, both in our state and across the country. As board chair of JCA and a parent of the school, I sought out NHA to provide a new 12K school in our area. I have experience governing and holding the organization accountable, and have seen firsthand, as a parent, the impact of their programming. NHA has had success with many different student populations, both in North Carolina and nationwide. In 2018-19, 8 of 10 North Carolina schools that partnered with NHA served 40% minority of students or higher, and 4 of those schools and 4 additional schools served populations of 90% or higher that were of minority. In 2018 and 19, 10 North Carolina NHA partner schools outperformed their local school districts, and in ELA, and 9 outperformed the 5 closest schools that students would have otherwise attended. In math, 7 schools outperformed the school districts, and 9 outperformed the 5 closest schools. Our partnership with NHA commits them to delivering an education program necessary for our students, even if states' revenues do not meet the expenditures. NHA assumes all financial risk, and our experience with them provides us confidence that we can expect a strong partnership with Johnston Prep. NHA will ensure our school will have everything it needs to run the day-to-day operations. NHA currently has a parcel of land under contract large enough to meet the needs for the students. We will begin constructing as soon as we can get the approval. We intend to start with the upper school and then construct the lower portion for the elementary grades. This property is located roughly 6 miles from JCA, and it's actually located on the same road. I did want to go ahead and address that JCA was delayed by 1 year due to land and construction issues. Wanting to avoid the potential for that reoccurring, we went ahead and started a lot of that legwork pretty early. We're well into the entitlement process. In fact, we received annexation approval and rezoning approval from the town of Clayton last week. And then this timeline will allow us to begin construction soon after the charter is awarded. In closing, I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to share our proposed vision for Johnston Prep. As the fastest growing county in North Carolina, there is an immediate need in our area for additional high school facilities. This need will only increase in the years ahead. We are excited for the potential opportunity to open Johnston Prep and address the demand faced in our community. More importantly, we are excited to successfully meet the educational needs of all students who may wish to enroll with us. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. And I appreciate the introductions and appreciate all you guys coming out today. And what I'd like to do now is just kind of open it up for full CSAD discussion and questions. And we'll put out the questions and then we'll ask you guys to respond once we have our questions.
Well, I think the number one question really comes down to, does this qualify for a replication? Because if it doesn't qualify for a replication, everything else is moot. And so I think that's something we have to address straight up.
Yeah, so maybe that would be the first question you guys could answer, is why you feel it does qualify for a replication.
Okay.
And yeah, whoever's speaking, just make sure you use the mic because that's how the live screen. Otherwise, they won't hear you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Ichesto with National Heritage Academies. Appreciate all the work that goes into today and every day throughout the year for the kids here in the state. That's a terrific question, and one we definitely took into consideration when partnering with Brooke and her board. And gosh, the conversations that we've had for well over a year now. I remember Brooke calling me quite often to talk about this. And as we look through the replication process, you know, the proficiency, the expectation of growth, and the other requirements that go into it, we noted that the policy also considers at the end that other considerations can be made. I believe it's at the end of the policy that talks about other considerations that can be taken into consideration beyond those measures. And our hope would be that potentially you may take those into consideration as you consider this, given that NHA does have a track record outside of the state with high schools. I think that's probably one of the concerns that comes into to mind with this. In Michigan, we partner with 8 partner high schools now, but 7 that have accountability data. Each of them are outperforming their local school districts and state averages. They serve a wide array of student populations, and they have high participation rates in early college programs, something we would hope to envision partnering with Brooke and her board on. So our hope would be beyond those proficiency and growth measures that 11 of our 13 schools that we partner with here in North Carolina do meet, whether it be with proficiency within 5% of the local LEA or meeting expected growth. JCA did both of those with its first year. Wake Forest Charter Academy continues to do that. And then financially and with budgets, independent audits and balanced budgets, all schools that NHA partners with in the state continue to meet that expectation.
So does National Heritage have K-12 schools or just high schools?
In Michigan, we partner with 2 K-12 schools, and actually 3 now. One just opened this fall, and that is a virtual school. But otherwise, we partner with 2 other K-12 schools. One is consolidated in a single building on a single campus. The other is a K-12 configuration. It's called Westfield Charter Academy, and that is a similar model to Brooke and her board, what they're proposing, where it's K-6 or K-8 on one campus, and then the high school upper grades on the other campus. And that's similarly situated within 3 to 6 miles away.
Jeff, this is Rita Hare. I wanted to clarify that the policy doesn't state that instead of those academic performance considerations, we could consider these other needs, but it actually says in addition to, so it doesn't preclude the performance that's expected of all NHA schools. Every school must meet those performance standards to qualify for replication.
Yeah, that's where I'm stuck. That's where I'm stuck. I thought for replication, it is all the schools that the EMO, CMO manages have to meet a certain threshold. And it's not, if they don't, these are the other considerations. It's not written as, where was that? I lost it.
I'm sorry.
It's in addition to, not in lieu of.
Exactly.
And it clearly says that the word shall is used. It's not, it doesn't appear to be equivocal. And each. And while you evidently do have schools in Michigan that meet that criteria, that data wasn't supplied.
We'd love to have the opportunity, if possible, to submit that data, if it could be considered. I know there's a timeline with the fast track replication process, but I know Mr. Anger is on the line and can speak to that in greater depth than I can.
And is that data that we're even allowed to consider? I thought it was other schools that they operate within the state of North Carolina, not outside of states. And I may be wrong. I'm just asking the question for clarification.
I think the out-of-state schools are considered when there are not any that are operating in our state. If they have schools operating in North Carolina, then those are the standards. However, those aren't high schools in this case, so again, it creates a complication.
And you have to consider what was in the application that was submitted.
That was submitted.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that concerned that the other schools in North Carolina aren't high schools, though I can understand a point taken. But the other schools in North Carolina don't meet the criteria set forth for replication. And again, it's not that there are other considerations in lieu of that, it's other considerations on top of that. Unless I'm reading this incorrectly.
Yeah, I'm looking at the policy and it's not equivocal. It's just not.
Can legal stamp this understanding, please?
If you're looking at the fast track replication policy, which is 16 NCAC 06G.0513, the first paragraph, subsection A, is for a nonprofit that operates charter schools within North Carolina. Only under section B, if you look to replication for a corporation that does not operate in North Carolina, does the out-of-state information apply? That's the question I think was before me. So it would, so when an entity exists or a nonprofit corporation board does operate within the state, then you only look at the ones within the state for replication purposes under this policy. So that answers the question.
I don't see where we have any place to go with it. If somebody's got something creative, I'm listening.
So this is Dave Anger, the Executive Director of High Schools for National Heritage Academies. And I would offer to the committee here that NHA is duplicating the K-8 program in this proposal. NHA has a K through 12 program and curriculum that operates, in Michigan. And we are proposing to replicate that portion of the NHA program that is not offered in the state of North Carolina today due to demand. So I can't speak to the way the law is written here, but I can say that this is replicating existing K through 12 high school programming, K through 8 programming that NHA operates, both in North Carolina and in Michigan.
I don't think we're even there where we're not addressing the issue of whether or not it's a replication of a K-8 or a K-12. We're looking at, in order to qualify for fast track replication, each of the schools in North Carolina have to meet certain performance standards. And while most of the schools that NHA runs do, 2 don't. And it says each. And this is rules. It's not like, now that we've been through the whole rule process, this isn't like we get to vote on well, we want to accept that or we don't. It's the requirement. And I don't see a way to get around that. And if somebody gonna tell me.
As you look at it, true. As we partner with more and more schools, we have the chance to serve more and more kids, and we're proud to do so. And I think, especially in those areas where maybe those 2 schools aren't within the 5% proficiency, as we track down the measures, they're serving student populations that are I'm trying to speak to your question, but I know it's probably not getting directly at your question. Student populations that are at much higher risk than the neighboring schools and the district schools as I look at them here. So I apologize as I scan the page. So one, I believe, is Forsyth Academy. But as I look at it, it outperformed the nearest 5 schools in math and reading and met growth twice between 2016-17 and 18-19. So it is meeting or expected growth, in the 2 of the 3 years. Gate City Charter Academy might be the other.
Yes.
So as I look there, that one also did outperform the 5 nearest located schools in both math and reading, and did meet or exceed growth twice between 16-17 and 18-19.
The problem with that is that we don't get to decide which schools
Sure.
you get compared to. It clearly says the LEA.
Sure.
Believe me, I was one of the people that pushed NHA to take on other populations, and I feel like they've done a really good job. I would not want to discourage that by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's been positive for those students. But in this case, I'm dealing with a rule that says each and LEA. And from what I'm hearing from legal, I don't have the option of doing anything different with it.
That's correct, Madam Chair, and it's really because they chose the avenue of replication. So they need to understand that it put them under those policies that, as you said, are unequivocal.
Madam Chair, along this line, just out of curiosity, why did you choose, obviously why you chose replication is the sooner the school gets up, the better off for these students.
Sure. That was our main driver. As we looked at the policy, our understanding was we thought the programming, as Mr. Anger said, being in place, a K-12 program being in place, our understanding, if misguided, apologies, would have qualified, wanted to meet the needs of the board that Brooke has brought forth, the needs of their county for the new schools. I believe, Brooke, as you sit on the county planning board, you interact with a lot of the schools, and you see things like if no schools come soon, there'll be thousands and thousands of kids above capacity. So as Brooke approached me and said, hey, there's a real need here. How quickly could a school come to our area if we wanted to partner with you? As we examined it, we thought this could be a route that we could pursue with Brooke.
And again, I'm speaking for myself, I don't speak for other C7. This is not these questions are not questions about the quality of the application at all, or disputing need at all. Does it even qualify under the language that the law is, that we have to, a rule that we have to abide by? And I think even your point is well taken about other considerations, but it's not other considerations on top of the ones you didn't meet or in lieu of those considerations. It's beyond those considerations.
I don't see where we can go anywhere with this, other than to say that they don't qualify us for fast track replication.
An acceleration would have been because
They needed
the
this
facility.
They would have had to have a facility. So then it kind of really comes down to whether you guys are willing to go ahead and move forward so that by the time you next round, because we start a new round in January, so by the time the next round comes around, you have facility locked down so that you could go acceleration. Because since it's 3 years, by January your numbers aren't going to change. And that would be my recommendation. I don't see how we can approve. I just don't see how we can do it.
I don't even know how we vote on it.
Well, I think we vote that we don't move it forward because it doesn't meet the qualifications for a fast track replication.
Right. Again, not based on need or
Yeah,
the quality
or the merit of the application.
Application, just by the letter of the statute.
And it's disappointing, I mean, because there is a need in Johnson County for additional options. There is a strong demand for options. The rule's the rule, and that is frustrating, but that our job is to make sure that we reinforce the rules and that we abide by them to make sure that we have an even and fair process for everyone.
So is somebody willing to make a motion?
Could I ask a clarifying point? I apologize.
Sure, no, go ahead.
So your recommendation to potentially pursue a January route, does that acceleration still trend towards 22 or does that go to 23 then?
I think that's the 23. Dave, isn't that the 23 round?
Yes.
Then a follow-up, if it's okay, is there a way for this group to move to the regular track this cycle to a 23 if both were trending in that direction?
Unfortunately, if you apply for acceleration or you apply for fast track and you don't get it, you can't move to the regular.
For clarification on the accelerated applications of the barn, that you have a facility that's close to being
sure
to move in, not that you've got land, but you've got a building that's close to it.
Sure.
It's a little bit higher than even the fast track barn.
I want to ask a clarifying question too. I want to make sure that we're looking at B instead of A.
We are looking at B.
Okay. Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I make the
Let
motion.
me reword that. Nobody would like to make this motion. Would somebody make the motion?
I make the motion that we do not move Johnson forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any discussion?
I just would really encourage them to look at the accelerated rate then in January, get the facility in place, potentially be opened in September or August of 23. Yeah.
Madam Chair, this is Rita Hare. Since we're talking about encouraging Johnston Prep to return, they did submit a budget, and the year one budget is $15,706 per pupil expenditure, and that's I would just encourage them to take a hard look at that. It'd be very hard for me to approve, set that kind of precedent of per pupil expenditure in a budget. Gets a little better after year one, but if they're going to be rewriting an application, I'd love to see them find a way to do that more creatively.
And I don't know that I would dismiss the idea of expanding Johnson Charter Academy to include high school grades. I mean, I don't think that should be dismissed offhand. I don't know what your plans are, but that might seem to be a possible way to go that would satisfy the demand in the county for those high school seats.
And you can add that a grade a year without, nobody has to give you permission, you can just do it.
So we did look at that option, and there is no land available that's adjacent to JCA and or within the 5 miles that would facilitate expanding.
And these schools are so far apart that putting the high school on the land that you're talking about putting a new school on wouldn't work?
It's just over 6 miles away.
Yeah, but if you're already saying that the kids from Johnson Academy are gonna go to that high school, so what difference does it make? I guess that's the part I don't understand.
What do you mean, what difference does
Well,
it make? If it's outside of the 5 miles, we have to do a new app anyway.
No, you just have to do an amendment.
Amendment to your application.
You just need an amendment to your app.
The amendment to your existing
Oh, yeah,
charter.
correct, that's right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, an amendment to the existing app, you wouldn't have to reapply.
We would have to take that to state board because it's over 5 miles. So first, you'd have to do an amendment request through our office. Take it, then CSAB would have to recommend it to state board. Then we would take it to state board for discussion 1 month, and vote the next month. So it's a 3-month process. As long as you're not low performing, you are able to add a grade a year, high school too.
And since you're already saying that the kids from the school that's 6 miles away would be going to the high school anyway.
Yes, ma'am, they will.
So that 1 mile, I would be surprised if that was the issue.
So now, they don't have data though for the school.
Do you have any academic data for Johnson?
We don't have 3 years because of COVID.
But do you have any academic data?
Yes.
The 1 year you have, you were not low performing, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so then you're not on the low performing list. So that would be the only thing that would be a dead stop.
We can talk to you about that offline.
Yeah, about that as
Just
the
call us.
options.
Thank you for that option.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Ashley, would you do a roll call, please?
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Recuses.
okay. Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Todd Goffey,
Aye.
Shelley Bullard,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez,
Aye.
John Elbridge.
Aye.
Please understand that we are not in any way putting any reflection on this application or even on the idea of opening the high school. This is strictly based on the statute you came under. I would encourage you to look at all the other options that you could possibly think of to make it work for you.
Right, and 3 members on our board sit on other boards, so we fully understand you having to make sure that you're covering exactly what you're supposed to do. So, and we appreciate that, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done?
We're done.
I have an announcement.
Oh, Ms. Parlay has an announcement.
I do. I couldn't leave today without sharing this. Miss Ashley Paquetto came to Wake Preparatory Academy's board retreat on August 19th and presented the OCS 2020 annual report or review. She did an outstanding job, and we appreciate her service so much that I presented her with a certificate of recognition. Framed with beautiful.
This is my cubicle.
And it's heavy too. But hey, they have to give each other a shout. When we know that they're going far above the duty. And this was after hours. We had dinner about 4:30. By the time she spoke, it was about maybe 5:30. But I just wanted to share that. Ashley.
I was gonna say you were higher.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion.
I was gonna say, who wants that? Who wants to do
I'll
that?
make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
See y'all in the morning.
Okay. I'm glad I got out with
She's supposed to get me involved.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what's